Alright, so this just showed up, and this is an electric skateboard from TeamGee, and they sent this to me to do a video of and to talk about and do a review. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, because there's a lot of cool things that we can do messing around with this thing, and a lot of fun things to show off and talk about. So yeah, and we also wanted to make an e-skate at some point ourselves, maybe like a dirt board or something, and what better ways to get our feet wet. So this is gonna kind of be just a first impressions video. I'm gonna open the box, take a look at it. I might step outside and ride it for a little bit, and we're gonna get Riley, get his impressions on it, and it'll just be a real quick first impressions video. So here we go, let's open it up and see what we think. Alright, so I'll take my trusty knife. Open this thing up. We got a box in here with the board. There's a board. There's a box. I suppose this is packaged well enough, but I don't think anyone really cares about how impressively it's packaged. There we go, there's that. Let's see. Some pretty light concave on it. Pintail shape. It's a pretty thick deck. And let's make sure we don't put grip tape on the stone countertop here, but it's got strings of hot glue or something. And this box probably a remote and charger, yeah. We got simple something there, remote. Power supply, this is just going to be 42 volt. That's an unusual voltage. And a little headlight, super bright LED headlight that uses, I wonder what type of cell, CR, yeah, just one of the button cells. Yeah, look at that. Little button cell light, and a skate tool, which is great. I like having skate tools around. I gave Riley one of mine, and so I've been down to one. Alright, so let's take a look at this here. So one thing I always check when looking at a complete is to make sure it has bearing spacers, and this does, so that's one good thing going for it. It's just got, you know, standard RKP trucks for the front, and just generic, unlabeled, unbranded wheels. So I'm sure that's just going to be generic, unbranded urethane along with that. The bearings are generic and unbranded too, but I am sure that that is not going to make any difference at all. Over here at the front, so for the charging, we have, I've mentioned before, it was a little bit unusual 42 volts and 2 amps. So this is not going to be a power brick that you have lying around. And the charging end is this unusual 3-prong thing, so it's probably going to be very hard to find a replacement without going through the manufacturer Teamgi for your charging port. The motors, it is hub motors, and it's just, I'm not sure how it's working because it's got these beefy hanger on the truck, so I'm not sure how exactly that all interfaces. I'll have to take a closer look at that later. The board itself, as far as the electric bit, is really simple. Power on here, power on the remote. The remote has a high and a low speed on it, which I like. And at first I thought that this was an infrared remote because of that, but it is not. That is simply an LED light, which is massively reassuring. I don't know why. Infrared wouldn't work at all for a remote. Infrared works for indoor remotes, but outdoors it doesn't work because the sun emits so much infrared light that, yeah, IR remotes don't work. So I don't even know why I thought about it, but you know, that's when I saw that I was like, oh no, infrared. The unusual thing about this remote is it doesn't work in both directions. You have to press this button here to switch directions, and you can press that button as it's spinning, and you can also change the power as it's spinning. I can't do it with one hand on the camera and one on the remote, but anyway, the low speed, if you can see on, there we go, 17, 18 kilometers an hour. That's a little over 10 miles an hour. And the high speed is 29, 30. So that's a little over 18 miles an hour. And this is unloaded, so I'll have to see how that goes once you put some weight on it. So, on here we've got, says, don't open it privately, and I won't. I will open this on camera, publicly, following their specifically written directions right here. So I'm planning to open this up, see what's inside. I'm guessing that it's just control and boards and something under here, because that's not enough room for very much battery at all. And this sounds particularly hollow, so I'm guessing it's just got a row of batteries in here. Because it's 42 volts, that tells me that the batteries are probably not in parallel, they're probably in series, and that's probably the operating voltage of the motors or something like that. That's speculation, we'll have to find out. And so I'm going to be interested to find out what sort of charge protection and overcharge, discharge protections on the batteries. I'll check for that. Stay away from water, it says, so this is not water resistant. It's pretty dry out right now. It was raining and snowing earlier, but I think it's dry enough now to take this out and have a look. So let's see how it actually rides. All right, so I've taken it out here where the road is a little bit quieter to step on it, and it's pretty good. These bushings are not too stiff. A lot of times, well, this is kind of an older problem, but it used to be that stock bushings were all really stiff. And so these, I think, are pretty acceptable. Most people are probably not gonna feel like they're needing to replace the bushings for looser ones. Some people may feel like they need to replace them for stiffer ones, however, because they are loose is good, too loose is not good though. So if you're I'm 150 and they feel pretty good for me. So if you're like 170, 180 or heavier, you may be wanting to replace the bushings. I believe they're cone. Yeah, they got cone bushings on the tops. So if you just replace that cone for a barrel, I believe it's barrel underneath. Yeah, barrel underneath, cone on top. So if you just replace that cone for another barrel, you might be good, and you only need to replace 2 bushings. So, one thing I did notice right away is you cannot see the power light at all in the sun. But it does have a beep to tell you that it's on. It doesn't have a beep to tell you that it's off. But if it's off, you're probably heading indoors or something where you can see the light to make sure it's off. So I'm not sure that's a big deal, but it is an observation. You're not going to be relying on the light to see that it's on. You're going to be relying on the beeping. Okay, so let's ride. So I'm going to have camera in one hand, remote in the other, and you can see I'm wearing a helmet because this could get gnarly. I won't be able to catch myself. So, remote on. Oh, it's hard to see the remote. There's no backlight on the remote. I'm going to start off low. I'm going to start off with my posture very forward. This is how you want to stand on a board. It might be going fast. When you're weight on the front. Ooh. So the other thing, there it goes. This thing can accelerate fast enough to stabilize you if you just, I mean, it's not like a boosted board, which can just peel out from under you, but it can get away from you a little bit, throw you off balance. So you want to make sure you're using the range of acceleration and not just gunning it like that. It does have automatic control where it won't speed up right away even without load on it. So you can see if I just gun it here, it takes a second to speed up, and that can be a little deceptive when you're riding. So you want to make sure that you start off low speed, even if you feel, I mean, it'll catch up to where you have your position on the accelerometer on your hand. Now, pulling this backwards will not make the board go backwards, but it does act as a brake, and it acts as it can act very aggressively as a brake to throw you off. So, of course, when you're braking, bend your knees, get low, and be gentle with this thing because it can toss you right off. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. I need to keep it out of the water, so I'm gonna watch where I cross here. But yeah, I've just been messing around on the low speed, going uphill right now to high speed. Woo! And then brake. Ooh, gently. Okay. Alright, so the sun went behind a cloud and it got really cold really fast. So I had to come running inside and stop riding. But my first impressions initially are that this is a ton of fun. I've ridden other e-skates, mostly boosted boards, And this doesn't have quite the power of a boosted board as you'd expect, but it's still a lot of fun. My one complaint with this has to do with the remote. So, the controls, not necessarily the remote, but the controls. So, if I turn this thing on, there. So I turn this thing on, you can see it's got the jerk is limited. So the jerk is the rate of acceleration, right? So the rate of acceleration is limited for accelerating, right? It's not limited for braking. Watch this. If I go to high, it'd be even more dramatic. So the braking is really, really twitchy and not nearly as useful as it could be. I'm sure that if you get used to the controls, you'll be able to control your braking nice and smoothly. But I think the range of the braking, I don't think you ever are going to need the full braking force because you're not going to stay on the board. So I think they could half the dynamic range of the force and apply it to the full range on the controller, and maybe put a jerk limit on or something to improve the braking to make it more controllable. Because when you're braking, if you need to brake in an emergency or something like that, that's where you're going to have the least amount of finesse with your handling of the controls, I would expect. So that's my only complaint right now. So we'll have to get Riley on this thing and see what his impressions are. You just have to tell us what you think.
It's sleek. It looks good. It looks like a 180 width on the axle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a standard reverse kingpin truck. It's got maybe an 1/8 inch riser on there. And the deck doesn't even look like it has the batteries in it, but
it does.
It does. They've completely hidden them inside the deck. All you can see is the controller, and there's all this extra stuff on the hanger if you're looking close enough.
And I hadn't taken this, if I'd take the sticker off.
Yeah. And then you start to see, oh yeah, there's something going on with that hub. But yeah, it doesn't even look like an electric skateboard if you're not clever enough to.
Yeah. So feel the slop on that rear truck.
So the front feels pretty good.
It doesn't feel bad. It's actually the kingpin hole is actually oversized. The pivot cup is not completely snug as it could be.
Okay.
So I think it'd actually be pretty easy to just like JB weld the kingpin in and put a little masking tape around the pivot cup to shim it up a little bit.
It still feels pretty good.
It does feel pretty good. And then step on it and feel how carvy it is.
Oh wow. Yeah.
For an out of the box.
Yeah, they definitely went with softer bushings.
Mm-hmm. And the
which is ideal, you know. If you're just pushing it around on the flats, you know, you don't want it to be stiff and set up for high speed. So I'd say for rocking on the flats, yeah, that extra weight from all the batteries and motors, I can't even tell pushing it around. But it feels like they've done a pretty good job for keeping it as minimalist as possible.
And I think already I can ride at the limit of those wheels. Especially these rear ones. So what I'm going to be tempted to do is actually to switch it around, have ride it backwards with the motor on the front, and put some better wheels on the rear, because that'll give me the grip I need.
Yeah. And what are these, like 80 millimeter wheels or something?
They're very, very big wheels.
Yeah, somewhere between 78 and 80, that's for sure.
Then it'd be nice to even sand down some
Wheel wells?
wheel wells, yeah.
Some relief in there.
Mm-hmm. And that's out of. I'll have to check, make sure there's no batteries under there. But
Yeah, I know. I just found the little wire that is hidden.
yeah.
underneath
And I was looking at it,
hanger.
and it's the reason this hanger's all beefy is because the axles of the motor, the hub motor, is bolted to it from the other side.
Huh.
So that would make it really easy to mount these wheel hubs on basically anything else.
Oh, yeah. Because it's not a solid axle from wheel to wheel. It's just this portion of it.
And I did have a look inside a little bit, and it's just a standard. It's a standard connector. They use a connector for the battery pack, so we could relocate the controller with minimal effort onto something else if we were able to provide a different battery pack for it.
But yeah, overall, this is a good, clean product. It's very simple. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, but what everything that I'm seeing has here is well executed.
I think you gotta
Good choice.
try
of
it
material.
with the power on.
Yeah, I know. I haven't even ridden it yet. So let's take a look at this remote now.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you how it works, or do you want to figure it out yourself?
Oh, let's see here. Long press.
Button press long time.
All right. So we've got a power button. Whoa, it has beeping. That's fun.
And
FD forward drive, maybe? High, low. Does it have to be pointed at it or something?
no, that's probably how the person's like, uh-oh. We got to
It's
I
got a
think
light.
yeah. I think you turned the power on before, and I think I might just timed out.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and then it'll show the battery of the board over there, and it'll show the distance traveled below that.
Huh. That's a pretty nice little screen, too.
It's hard to see. It does have a backlight, but you can't really see it outside very well.
Whoa. It has a real pleasant Jetsons hum. It sounds like it's from the future. So how does reverse work?
So you have to switch it to reverse. So when you're in forward, reverse is just the brake. So that's engaging
The resistance of the brake.
So it's not like it's different than putting in reverse, because this just resists motion. So if you try to twist the wheels while I have this pulled back,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and if it's a neutral, yeah,
So I see the thumb wheel has a click.
that's for the cruise control, and that's one thing I want to test, because I want to see how far away it can get from you before the cruise control turns off. You have to like double click it.
Huh.
Yeah,
So I can kind of set my speed and then double click.
yeah.
I put it on low just to see what happens.
Yeah, so low goes up to about 10 miles an hour.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Whoa.
And the braking is touchy.
Yeah, it has some sensitivity.
So that's my big complaint. It's not as big as a complaint as it was when I first tried it out.
It's got some acceleration though.
Yeah, has some acceleration. Doesn't peel out like the boosted will.
Does it have reverse?
Yes. So if you flip it, that button, the second button under the power button,
Oh, okay.
will reverse it.
Whoa! This is the low setting? Whoa! Whoa!
I guess it can peel out if the floor's dusty enough.
It's interesting, when you put it in reverse, you actually push the wheel forward instead of
Yeah, yeah. It's forward reverse.
forward reverse.
And it accelerates even more heavily on fast.
More so than what this is doing right now?
Yeah.
This is, you have to really lean into this.
Yeah, you have to oh yeah. You have to
Alright, he does have some giddy up.
want to open the door and get out? Are you ready to get let loose onto the world, Riley?
Alright, let me out! Let me out! I keep having this habit of feeling like I have to point the remote at something.
Where's the TV?
Where's the TV? Change the channel! It does have really touchy brakes. Oh man, you gotta be ready for those brakes.
Yeah, I found that when braking, it really helps just put your other foot and just put it all the way back.
Yeah, I mean, it almost needs a warning button.
Yeah. Okay. I want you to show. Oh.
Oh yeah, you gotta be ready for that brake.
Okay, here.
When it hits, yeah.
Trade off here.
All right. You feel me?
High. Forward. Okay, here we go.
Nice. Oh yeah, you got that figured out. You've been bucked off of it once or twice.
Yeah, I learned my lesson the hard way.
So tell us about the brand and the name and the...
Yeah, it's Team G. It's I think that's how you say it. Team G.
I saw that it's got this sticker here
Yeah.
from Shenzhen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the Silicon Valley of China. That's where all the high-tech electronics are being manufactured and designed, and it's synonymous with the future.
Woo. Not used to it in reverse yet.
I'd say they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It's startling because it looks just like a regular pintail longboard, but then to see you not have to push and take off is pretty cool. And I keep getting off into the sunset. To look for in a deck is if the wheels and axles hit flush when they're resting on their side. It's just a...
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
especially with it being this heavy.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it would just sit on its side.
That way you can store it. It takes up the least amount of space. It's easy to grab and go. And I don't know, it's a small detail that somebody who's made decks looks for.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that shows that the whole package has been considered.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the graphic. It's nice and subtle, simple. The all black gives it a real stealthy demeanor.
I like the stripes on the top. I think I'm more of a fan of the offset stripes a little bit rather than the center stripes. But
I would agree. You ride the board goofy or regular, so you're kind of on one side more than the other anyway. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that asymmetry just helps me orient where the deck is relative to where my feet are.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, it's almost impossible to figure out that it's an electric skateboard without looking closely. Yeah, I mean, if I was just looking for a basic electric board that I'm not terribly concerned with, and I like that it doesn't advertise that it's an electric skateboard, which makes it more of a target for somebody to steal from you. This is a pretty benign looking longboard, and you know, if somebody were to see this next to a more exotic electric skateboard, they're gonna rip off the more blatantly obvious electric skateboard. So there's something to be said about being discreet like this.
yeah.
But because they've made it discreet doesn't mean they've compromised performance. It has plenty of go-go juice, and the functionality of the brakes is still there. And that's the one thing that I have to say puts the electric skateboard into a whole nother
domain.
Yeah, it makes longboarding more accessible to the masses, and to me the simplest reason is because it has a brake. It's a nice, elegant way to introduce braking
without some, dedicated brake system.
Yeah, there's no mechanism that requires lubrication or adjustment or cables or handles or things that just don't make sense and aren't the most appealing, and require some know-how. Somebody who's going to put a brake on a skateboard isn't going to want all those extra things. But brakes on an electric longboard are just an additional feature.
They're part of the package. They're just there.
Exactly, and I think that one feature alone is something that most people haven't really addressed as being one of the benefits of an electric skateboard for somebody who isn't a hardcore longboarder or skateboarder. It's just somebody who can appreciate the longboard as a mode of transportation and can benefit from the fact that it has the ability to slow itself down.
The other thing that I caught on pretty quickly with this, having it for a day and a half, is it'll be really easy to put a lot of hours, a lot of miles on that thing. Get out and ride a lot more than I would be able to otherwise, just because it opens up. I don't have to hike up to the top of a hill anymore. I can just, the ride up is part of the ride, the ride down is part of the ride, and it takes me, 10 minutes instead of half an hour.
The flats now become rideable terrain.
I was thinking about going to Roslyn with this thing.
Yeah, and you don't have to be an expert rider to be able to go out and dice around in traffic on really steep pavement to have a good time. You can just find some nice wide open stretch of clean pavement, throw it down, and it's got these nice carvy soft bushings in here that allows it to really maneuver around underfoot at lower speeds and be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say they've done a good job. I'd definitely agree with you. If you're a heavier rider, the bushings are too soft. I did notice I got some wheel bite.
Yeah, I saw the mark earlier from the...
So, again, because it uses standard riser pads, you could probably just put some taller pads on but I would definitely see the benefit in having some relief cutouts for the wheels on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Little
you don't
wells.
have the option of going with smaller diameter wheels because of this hub motor setup.
Yeah. So how, if you were to buy this, and I can't remember exactly the price, I think it's either $530 or $550. How long would you be expecting something like this to last and be happy with it?
Oof. Well, that's tough. I haven't really considered these electric longboards in my quiver of boards, but it would need to last about 2 years of intermediate riding.
Mm-hmm.
If I was aggressive and riding it all the time, and I was pushing it through the rain, and it was one of my primary modes of transport, you know, I get it. I see that there's a lot that can fail. Electronics have their lifespan, and I'd say that I would expect it to work for about 6 months without any problems if I was really abusing it.
So
I can certainly see that there's some things that could go wrong, but I would expect and I would guess that this could perform for 6 months solid with a lot of abuse. So,
all right. Well,
yeah, this is longboard technology. Checking out some High Zoot electric longboards, and we'll get some more mileage with this thing and get back with you. Over and out.